Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Alamjit Flora from the Wednesday Talk Show brought to you by Pothos Events. Pothos Events is a Sweden based company, and now we are global on the Unimo platform with our next show, The Holistic Life. The Holistic Life is brought to you every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. India time and 6 p.m. Sweden time. So do join us on both our shows. We are bringing excellent guests on both the shows, and we are going to interact on many different subjects, just like what we have today. Today we're going to talk about women empowerment, women in media, and how women are portrayed, in the media world in general. Women have always been better influences in all their roles as mothers, managers, CEO. Whichever position you put the woman on, she brings an element that makes the task more fulfilling and keeps everyone involved. Yes, it's easy to say that, oh, she's a woman and she can multitask. But can you imagine being in her shoes? No. It's a woman's innate nature, her beauty, her way of life that has attracted both men and women equally. They are true role models, and where they are, and in every sense, the advertising companies are always using them to their advantage. Yes, they do. We do see a lot of discrepancies still happening in the media world, and that's what the topic is of our very own Neha Vibhute. She is joining us from Brussels. She's pursuing her doctorate in media communication, specializing in gender studies. Neha holds an MBA in sales and marketing and a postgraduate diploma in public relations and corporate communications. Please welcome Neha from Brussels joining us right away. Hi,
Thank you so
Neha.
much, Alamjit.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Very good. So Neha, it's very exciting, especially because you are from the same, institute as me, and we both are from Symbiosis. So it's really exciting to have, a junior here. So, and your topic especially is very relevant and very exciting. I'm sure like many of our viewers today are going to enjoy this discussion a lot. So my first question, actually, Neha, to you is, you are talking about. Can you just tell us more about your, your study right now, so I can ask you more questions on that then.
Yes, sure. First of all, thank you so much for the introduction and thank you for having me on your talk show. I'm currently doing my doctorate in, like you mentioned, media communication, specializing in gender studies. So it's about how women are portrayed in the media. I'm talking about Indian media specifically, and it's a comparative study about how men are portrayed and women are portrayed and how women actually perceive these roles and representations, whether they can identify with these roles and representations, whether they feel like they see themselves, or do they feel like they're still stereotyped in traditional or non-traditional roles? So that's my study primarily.
Exactly. So, the whole question is that in this 2021 that we are in this, year, and so progressive and so, towards gender equality, we have all these genres, the discussions around this, but still you have chosen this topic. Can you, tell us more elaborately why?
Yeah, so I started my doctorate in 2018. And like you rightly pointed, people are talking a lot about gender equality. I'm not sure if we've reached there yet, but there
Yeah.
definitely is a lot more awareness. And I thought choosing something like this is super topical and relevant. And not only now, not only in India, it's relevant all across the world. And that's exactly one of the reasons why I chose it, because I wanted to do my thesis in something that's going to remain relevant not only now and not only in India, across the world, and for the next coming decades for sure, right? Because there is a lot of awareness, yes, but we're far from reaching gender parity.
Very true, very true. And you see it as a global discussion. We're not just talking India, but if you pick up a lot of studies happening in US and all, they're talking on the same lines. The representation in the parliament, representation in companies, corporates. So people are getting more focused. So that's great. But how do you think media is going to enhance this? And what role does media play in gender equality?
Well, I think media has a very, very, very vital role to play in influencing gender equality, creating awareness about it, because everyone is super dependent on media, right?
Yes.
Social media, different forms of media. And that is our source of information, not only towards what the world around us is, but just generally about ourselves as well, right? We start
Yeah.
looking at ourselves in the way that we see media representations. So media has a very, very important and a super vital role to play in forming perceptions about us, about the world around us, about society in general. So
Yeah,
I
the
think it's very
influencing.
important. Yeah, I think it's a very important influence in our day-to-day lives. So
Yeah.
media is extremely crucial.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what do you think, do women need to change their roles? How do they portray themselves? That media, because, media, it kind of is a reflection of what's happening in the society. So, do you think we women also need to take charge in changing that perspective?
I think that's a very interesting question. And yes, through my interviews with the women that I interviewed, I have realized that a lot of them complained about, women pulling down women. So I think it's really, really important for women to be supportive, for women to encourage and motivate each other. So, yes, as women, I definitely think we need to take charge of not only our own careers, but also be a motivation for all the aspiring women around us. So
Yeah.
women are responsible for women's growth and success.
Yeah, and how do you think? Do you have any examples? Do you have any scenarios where you see women taking the lead and making that change?
Well, yeah, I mean, you see it in the media all over, right? You have women like Kamala Harris who've come into the picture, and I think that's
Yeah,
provided a lot of inspiration to a lot of young women all across the world
yeah,
to take charge and to believe in themselves and actually achieve their dreams, right? So I think it's really important for women and media to be representing women in a very positive way so that it can be some sort of motivation and inspiration for women.
yeah. And because you're talking about Indian perspective, so I think we have a very iconic already representation in Priyanka Chopra. If you go to see,
For
she
sure.
is taking India global in a very very positive manner. The way you want to see us portrayed in and around the world. So I think she's a correct what do you say ambassador in that sense.
Yeah, she definitely is a great ambassador because she's breaking so many stereotypes, she's breaking so many
Yes,
boundaries, right? So she's a great
absolutely.
inspiration and influence for sure. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good, and yeah, you see it in Hollywood is increasingly taking Indian artists. So it just makes shows that how we are going global more.
Yeah,
So
and I feel like that's just this one little person or one little example of making people believe that, this can happen. And it
yeah.
motivates and encourages so many other women to actually take that step. I feel like a lot of women have this fear of not believing in themselves,
Hmm.
which is really important to break. And that can happen through role models, right? So, like you
Exactly.
rightly pointed, Priyanka Chopra is a great ambassador for something like this.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. You have seen this trend over the years, like a woman going to Cannes Festival. You had Aishwarya Rai coming on, on those red carpets and all. They really empowered. They showed they actually portrayed India. So yeah, so that's been happening for a while, but that's good. What I would also like to know from you is, can you share from your findings, like because you're doing your PhD now on this, so do you have any positive scenarios and negative scenarios of women portrayed in the world media? Anything
Well,
that you?
yeah, from my findings, what I understand is that media has been representing women in very traditional, stereotypical roles.
Yeah.
usually of a housewife, or usually as a sex object, usually very objectified sexually, right? That
Yeah.
is slowly, gradually changing. So these negative traditional representations of women are gradually changing. Definitely not at the pace that it should be and that you and I would want, but there is some awareness about it, and women are now represented in a few positive and realistic roles, which is definitely a positive thing.
Yeah. So can you give our viewers some examples of these positive roles that women where they are portrayed? Like, can you tell us more on the media side, on advertising, or any other platform?
So there are a bunch of advertisements, if you actually see, like the Dove advertisements, right? They're
Yeah.
super empowering because they're showing women in a very realistic way, in a true way, yet a very, very positive way. So it is
Yeah.
creating some sort of awareness about women accepting themselves the way they are. And that in turn, I think, generates a lot of feeling of confidence, empowerment. So I feel like there are a bunch of brands which are actually taking this up. Academically, it's called femvertising, so female advertising. And
Yeah.
a lot of brands are actually making the effort to portray women in more realistic, positive ways. Closer to home, you have the Tanishq ads, which are again very,
Yeah.
very realistic representations of women who are
Women.
independent, powerful, and strong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, even smaller brands like Biba, for an example, has come up with a number of advertisements which are showcasing women in more positive roles. So, I
Yeah.
think these are slow, small changes that are happening, and gradually it would make a big impact for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And what also, comes to my mind right now is also the mother-in-law and daughter relationship, the daughter-in-law relationship. This is one angle that's being shown very positively
Yes,
nowadays, where, the mother-in-law is actually like being so supportive, and it's very nice to see that, it's a good representation of a, well-informed mother-in-law, and, she knows her rights, her daughter-in-law's rights. So it's good that
definitely.
the media is taking that take. So what do you think?
Oh, certainly, certainly. Like I said, I think women need to be encouraging other women, right?
Yeah.
So it's really important for, like you said, taking the example of mother-in-laws becoming more aware and encouraging, supporting their daughter-in-laws. These kind of scenarios are something that is very relevant in India. And
Yeah.
just seeing a positive portrayal or just seeing a positive twist or change in the representations makes a lot of difference to a lot of lives. People start
Yeah.
looking at it differently, and yeah, slowly just imbibing it, and slowly, like I said, slowly, gradually changes will happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is a
True.
great take as well.
True. And why we talk about advertising, I feel, is because it's so repetitive. These ads are played again and again, so it actually starts playing on your mind. Because
True.
if you're watching a match, it's coming at least 10 times. So somewhere,
Correct.
it's going in the subconscious. So
For
that's
sure.
good. Yeah. So that's a good take that advertisers are looking at. So also, my question to you was that you, in fact, have, when we were discussing, you had this question sent that you're doing a research on, that has the essence of the term empowerment changed over years? Has it been reduced only to commercial freedom and independence in making purchases for women?
Yeah, so there are two ways of looking at it. Now, first, I think media, of course, I mean, brands primarily, of course, have a commercial aspect towards their advertising, right? They are not
Yeah,
doing it for any social cause, really. So they
absolutely.
are promoting a particular product, a particular service, and along with that, if they're promoting a social message, that's great. And I think we as consumers need to understand and realize this, and take the positive from it. At the end, it's a commercial act, of course. But having said that, that's the whole aspect from the advertiser's point of view. As consumers, I think women have started looking at empowerment in a very different way now. The struggles of 1970s, 60s, where women actually fought for equality in terms of voting rights, political representation, has all changed to, empowerment or freedom now, meaning wearing less clothes or smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol, just saying that, my choice, I want to do whatever I want to do. That is
Yeah.
not empowerment, right?
Yeah.
Empowerment or freedom is, or equality for that matter, is equality in terms of opportunities, in terms of respect, in terms of representation. So
Yeah.
I feel like the younger generations now, because of some of the role models not giving the right impression, a lot of the younger generation has started looking at empowerment as just my right to choice. Choice meaning everything in terms of clothes I wear, in terms of the way I look. So I think, yeah, a little bit of commercialization of empowerment has happened, but we as consumers need to rightly understand this and imbibe what is important and understand that empowerment is not only about commercialization.
Yeah, correct, correct. Very true. And we have a viewer, Disha. She wants to add something that lots of advertisements are showing male are cooking, cleaning, and motivating women. So yeah, there are those changes, those advertisements
There
also.
are, yes.
Rightly pointed, Disha. Very well said.
And it's really
So
important also because I feel like men also need to understand that, it's okay to contribute in housework. It does not belittle them in any way. It does not
yeah.
reduce them in any way. In fact, it probably encourages and supports your partner to be able to perform her work and her duties better, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we talk about media because, of course, we want to change society.
Of
And
course.
it's media is like everywhere now. In fact, everyone is in lockdown. So, they're even more exposed to
Yes.
this medium now. So, yeah. And, talking about it being global, scenario, actually, we have a video that we would like to share. And Neha, if you'll help me share that
Yes.
video on YouTube, which we'd like to show all our viewers. This
Sure.
is from Reese, and you must see what she says.
Do you need me to share my screen then?
Just no, your screen is already shared. Just play the YouTube video and
Ah,
make it
okay.
full screen.
Here.
I'm
Yeah.
not kidding. Go back and watch any movie, and you will see this line over and over again. You're going to see it now. I'm telling you. My daughter watched a movie last weekend. She goes, "Mom, I heard that line." And I love to ask questions. That is my most hated question. And I dread reading scripts that have no women involved in their creation because inevitably I get to that part where the girl turns to the guy and she goes, "What do we do now?" Now, do you know any woman in any crisis situation who has any woman in any crisis who has absolutely no idea what to do? I mean, don't they tell women, they tell people in crisis, little children, that if you're in trouble, talk to a woman. It's ridiculous that a woman wouldn't know what to do. So anyway, after I went to visit these studios, I started telling people about this current pipeline and that there was barely any female leads in films and the industry was in crisis, and people were aghast. "That's horrible," they said. And then they change the subject and move on to their dinner and move on with their lives. But I could not change the subject. I couldn't turn to some man and say, "What do we do now?" This is my life. Okay, I've made movies all my life for 25 years, since I was 14 years old. It was time to turn to myself and say, what are we going to do now? Okay, Reese, what are we going to do now? And the answer is really clear. My mother, who's here tonight, very strong, smart Southern woman, said to me, "If you want something done, honey, do it yourself." So I started my own production company, Pacific Standard Films, with the mission to tell stories about women. And I was nervous, y'all. I was spending my own money, which everyone in the movie business always tells you, don't spend your own money on anything. I was warned that on the crazy chance the Pacific Standard would acquire any good scripts, we would never make it past our first few years of business because there just wasn't a market for buying female-driven material. But like Ed Woods, I do not like to be underestimated. I am a very avid reader. In fact, I'm a complete book nerd. And so is my producing partner. So we just tore through tons of manuscripts and read so many things before they were published, but we could only find really 2 pieces of material that we thought were great. And we auctioned them with our money and we prayed that they would work. Both were strong, complicated, fascinating women at the center, and both were written by women. And lo and behold, both books hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list in July of 2012. One was called Gone Girl, and the second was called Wild. So we made those 2 films last year, and those 2 films grossed over $500 million worldwide. And we got 3 nominations for Academy Awards for women in acting performances. So that was year 1. And against the odds, Pacific Standard has had a year 2 and a year 3. We've bought 5 more best-selling books. Next year, we're going to make 2 of those, Big Little Lies and Luckiest Girl Alive, into films. We have over 25 films in development and 3 television shows, and they all have female leads of different ages and different races and different jobs. Some are astronauts, some are soldiers, some are scientists. One is even a Supreme Court justice. And they're not just good or bad. They're bold and haunted and dangerous and triumphant, like the real women that we meet every single day of our lives. But our company isn't just thriving because it feels like a good thing to do. It's thriving because female-driven films work. This year alone, Trainwreck with Amy Schumer, Melissa McCarthy's Spy, Pitch Perfect 2, Cinderella, the Hunger Games franchise that has made over $2.2 billion worldwide. Films with women at the center are not a public service project. They are a big-time, bottom-line enhancing, money-making commodity. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are in a cultural crisis. In every field and every industry, women are underrepresented and underpaid in leadership positions. And the reason we're all talking about it tonight, under 5% of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are women. Only 19% of Congress is women. No wonder we don't have the health care we deserve, or paid family leave, or public access to early childhood education. And that really worries me. How can we expect legislation with our rights and our needs being preserved if we don't have equal representation? So here's my hope. If you're in politics, the media, the tech industry, working as an entrepreneur or a teacher or a construction worker or a caregiver, you know the problems we are all facing. And I urge each one of you to ask yourselves, what do we do now? That's a big question. What is it in your life that you think you cannot accomplish? Or what is it that people have said that you cannot do? Wouldn't it feel really good to prove them all wrong? Because I believe ambition is not a dirty word. It's just believing in yourself and your abilities. Imagine this. What would happen if we were all brave enough to believe in our own ability, to be a little bit more ambitious? I think the world would change. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And it was an amazing representation of what we are talking. It's such a global topic. Even, Reese is the highest paid, actress in Hollywood. She holds that position, and she has taken a step of making only Indian, woman-centric movies, and she's doing so well. And that's what our topic is. So, Neha, I'd like to ask you, what's the way forward now?
Well, like Reese Witherspoon pointed out, I think women need to be super ambitious. Women need to believe in themselves. We need to have equal representation to just make the world a better place. there are two things to this. I think women need to believe in themselves, women need to support each other, encourage each other, and also men have a very important role to play in this. I think men also need to be super understanding and encouraging of their partners, or their family members, whoever are women, in order to let women explore several opportunities, for women to be ambitious, for women to actually go out there and make it big in life, right? I think it's really important to have support, which is really, really essential and vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Arpita also has one of our viewers. She's joining us from UK. She also has a take that it also inspires and influences children to share household chores. So when you see, they say that parenthood is only about acting, and then children copy whatever the parents are doing. It's not more about you talking to them so much. So
Definitely.
yeah, so we having good questions that are coming. So also, Neha, you had also sent me a questions that are how are brands portraying women in advertisements today, and how do men and women relate to the portrayals of these advertisements. So what do you think is, the men, how do they perceive when a woman is shown in more empowered way?
Right. Through my research, I found out that there are different takes that men had on women representations. Some men felt that strong women portrayals and representations is great. Some felt that they were a little exaggerated and over the top and not very relatable. But all men had one complaint. They were like, when women are represented in very strong, powerful imagery and representations, why are they always showing men as spineless, timid? Why
Yeah,
can't men be shown in the same light? Why are men and women constantly being pitted against each other? Which is a
yeah,
great finding.
yeah,
And yeah, so men had this complaint about, great, you're showing women in powerful, positive roles, great,
yeah.
but for it to be very relatable for men, they need to be portrayed equally and not be put down.
Yeah, exactly. Because India media tries to show that contrast just to,
Exactly.
get the message across. But yeah, but to tell you, the show is being telecasted from Sweden, which actually is, believes in equality in
Yes.
every way. And you will actually see, I'm sure even in Brussels, but in Sweden, they actually act on what they say. So, it's like you'll see men with prams in the park, and taking care. They have equal holidays and things like that. So a lot of advantages that are equally shared between women and men here. So the advertisement here will be very different, and I hope India picks up
Yeah,
from the
certainly.
examples.
Yeah, like you rightly
We-
pointed, Sweden is, I think, in the top two countries in the world in terms of gender parity index. I think it's
yes,
number one, in fact,
yeah,
not even
it
the top
is.
two. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Definitely, and it's really nice to see and very encouraging, and it's a good lifestyle here. So thank you, Neha, so much for discussing with us so elaborately about your research. And I would really like to know more. Before you part from us and say bye, is like, what are you, going ahead with now? What's the future for you? What's the research taking you? Where is it taking you now?
Well, with my research, I'm hoping to be able to make a slight difference in the lives of people, at least create some sort of awareness. I'm
Yeah.
about to submit my dissertation very soon, and I'm hoping that's a great read and some sort of inspiration for women and men out there to actually learn from this and hopefully make some impact and influence in their lives as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that's a very good one, and we're going to keep looking for those, your research and more articles on that. Keep sharing with us.
For
We would love to
sure.
share it with our audience also. So, thank you so much, Neha, for today, and I wish you all the best in your PhD.
Thank you so much, Alamjit. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having me.
Yeah,
Thanks.
pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, so that was Neha, a young girl researching on women equality, and you can imagine the world is still needing a lot of changes still to happen. So next week we have with us is Dr. Vidya Yeravadekar. She is the Pro-Chancellor of Symbiosis Institute in India, which is a very renowned institute. Who doesn't know about it? I don't need to say much about Dr. Vidya Yeravadekar. Come meet her. We are going to be talking on a very interesting topic next week. All your discussions regarding education and changing scenarios. There are so many questions that parents will have on this topic. So keep looking at the Pothos Events page. We'll post the promo very soon. Thank you so much for today. Bye, guys. See you next week.